Hello, welcome back to By Sword and Musket, our weapons channel, where we look at interesting things, talk about the values of collecting and why it's so important. Now, today we're in the office, a little bit of cross purposes in the display. Please ignore the Japanese prayer flag, just happens to be on display. But what we're going to talk about today are American rifles, the Winchester. I mean, it's one of the most important weapons in rifle development and collecting, certainly from the American point of view. But I wanted to show you how differently these guns can come in and how the conditions that they're in, I feel, still warrant collection at either end of the scale. And what we have here is an 1894 standard 30 caliber lever action rifle, and up here I have something a bit different. This is an 1873 military pattern musket, and as I go over them I'll show you the differences in how they have come to me and why I think that they're still very collectible at either end. Now, people collect for a lot of different reasons. My reason might be that I watched too many John Wayne films when I was young, and it was Saturday cinema. John Wayne, what do you think of? Cowboys. Uh, what's the first rifle you think of? You think of a Winchester. Cowboys and Indians, Winchester. Or lever action. And when you're a kid, basically, once you've seen the film Winchester 73, that's practically nailed it for you. It's the only type of lever action rifle there is. So people commonly say, oh, is that a Winchester? Just because it's got a lever on it, but we know that there were many, many different types. But what's interesting about these two rifles is this is a bog standard, probably a deer rifle, a game rifle, sporting weapon. Was actually made in 1913, and this military musket was actually made in 1903. So 10 years apart, because they carried on making the musket for 47 odd years, or the 73 for 47 odd years. It was like the most produced model that Winchester produced, probably almost that any gun arms manufacturer produced in the States over such a long period. But the conditions of both weapons are completely different. And it's down to the life that the weapons have experienced in their heyday, in the days where they were bought, purchased, acquired, brought into service. This being a sporting or a hunting rifle, this has been carried a lot, and consequently the finish, it shows in the finish. The musket itself, I was told when I bought it from the old gentleman who I purchased it from, had actually spent most of its life in a bank vault, protecting a bank vault, and it's in extremely good condition. You'd think they were round the other way. You'd think, in fact, that this one had been made 10 or 15 years ago, and it is some kind of copy, or like a Uberti or something like that. But in fact, it's testament to how good the finishing was on many of the weapons. And this one that's been heavily handled and heavily used is showing all the condition indicators of that kind of life. But it, I believe, in no way does it detract from its collectability. So you can have a worn out, tired looking weapon, and you can have a very, very high finish weapon, and they're both equally collectible and they're equally valuable to the person who is looking at buying them, or who's looking for his next acquire, the next thing he wants to buy. So the reason I bought the 30-30 was I actually wanted a reliable, genuine, period range shooting rifle. And this one has turned out to be absolutely great. It's got a nickel steel barrel, and I have won and shot quite well in competitions. And I've found it rapid, easy to use. The only difference, the only advantage that the musket or the 73 would have is in the caliber, in that the cases are longer in the 94, so they physically have to do more clever maneuvering to get out of the action. So in a way you have to be more positive. But with the 73, which is in 44-40 or 44 WCF, because it's a pistol case, it's far more easily handled by mechanics, and consequently it's actually quicker to cycle. But they're both pretty rapid when it comes down to it. If you put this 30-30 tired, worn out, but with a good bore rifle up against a bolt action in a 10-shot competition, this stands up extremely well. I've shot running bore with it at Bisley, and with open sights, very quick, I can get a number of shots off and they're all in the right place. I've also shot target with the 73 indoors on pistol ranges. Perfectly adequate, very good, very accurate rifle. So let's have a look at what they look like. And the reason for the video is I'm trying to show you, in my estimation, and I've sold and bought quite a lot of these things, that the condition of either is acceptable and there is a buyer out there for both. Yes, it may come down to money in the end, because obviously a high condition 73 is going to be worth a lot more than a high condition 94 standard rifle. There's the rarity factor, but the actual physical condition and appearance is extremely acceptable in both cases. Right, well, here we are, up close and personal, and you can almost immediately see that there is a vast difference in the amount of finish left on the rifles. One thing that does quickly occur to me is that not a lot of people realize that Winchester was actually vying for the military market in any way, or produced anything for such a market. But that's exactly what the musket in front of us was designed and built for. Mainly sold to foreign governments and not used by the American military. The idea was you've got a 30-inch barrel, longer barrel for accuracy over a longer distance. You have the speed of the lever action, but you have a weapon which is primarily an infantry built thing. Now this is a third model. We can tell that by looking at the dust cover and the way it's finished and attached. It's running on this milled solid part of the action. It only has grooves at the back, but that opens to allow cases to be ejected. The other thing that, obviously apart from the full length, almost full length woodwork, is that in fact this sight doubles as a bayonet lug. So these weapons can be found with socket, steel socket bayonets. obviously you've got a very long magazine tube, so a high capacity on the magazine. You have military sling swivels underneath and one on the middle band. And then you have a more military type rear sight or ladder sight here, which you can see immediately contains a beautiful nitro blue finished spring. Once again, testament to the high finish. Now there's the view from the top, looking down into the action. You can see the bolt, which is in the forward position, so that if the weapon was loaded, would have a cartridge in the breech here, and then when it pulls back, the ejector hooks it and flicks it out the top. You can see the brass lifting carriage or cartridge lifter at the sides, which is currently at the bottom, in line with the magazine tube. So the magazine tube is obviously hidden away inside the woodwork running along underneath the barrel. The rounds are being pushed by a spring. They get pushed into the cartridge lifter. When the lever is pulled down, the cartridge lifter is pushed up, the bolt is withdrawn. When the lever is then closed, the bolt is forced forwards along with the cartridge into battery, ready to go. The tube is loaded through the side, once again showing a high degree of finish. Side loading hatch, like all Winchesters. Push the cartridge in there and they progress up the tube. You get 10 or 12 in there. Talking more about the finish, you can see case color hardening on the lever. See the rich colors in there, and also on the hammer. The rest of the finish is this high grade blued finish, which has survived very well, but is starting to flake at the back and in other spots. Now, that is a genuine deterioration of the finish, which has not been shuffled along or mucked about with in any way to restore or to bring back and make good. And that is important in collecting terms. It doesn't matter that it has eventually failed, because it's showing that it is the original finish. So it makes the degree of original finish, well, it makes you appreciate it a little bit more, but it really is quite special. And if I turn the rifle over, you'll see the condition there. Oh, the brass lifter on 73 is always marked with a caliber. There we have it, 44 WCF. Sometimes that's worn away. That would be detrimental to the value. The serial number is there on the lower tang, and the model designation is on the upper tang. If we flip that over, well, it's upside down at this moment. You can see model 73. I'll flip those around and you can see the difference. There's the caliber designation, 44 WCF, and the sighting. Graduations. Operation of the weapon. So, lever all the way down, bolt back, hammer back. Because when this hammer drops, it acts on the back of this bolt, transferring the force straight through to the firing pin, which hits the back of the cartridge. Cartridge lifter in the upper position, Now, in closing the bolt, or on closing the lever, the bolt will travel forwards, push the cartridge into position and seal the breech. So here we are on the other side. Once again, we've got that beautiful rich bluing. Wood to metal fit, absolutely perfect. No splits or shakes. Often if any guns are used with a loose stock, you can get damage where the stock comes into contact with the action. So there's the model, beautifully engraved, 1873. The stock has got sort of standard dings and dents in it. It's American black walnut. Moving forward again, the bluing on the barrel, very good, and the bands. All the way up to the front end, and the front of the magazine tube. So this finish, this condition, is basically high grade. See Winchester's name, patent dates, and address there. Once again, not refinished. How do we know? Because there's no loss of depth to the markings. No high edges worn away. No signs of bad sanding or polishing. There's the sight, rear sight, flips up. So at longer distances, obviously you've got your graduations there. Now, and there it is, hammer back. The cover's still open. The bolt is forward. The cartridge would be in position. Hammer is back. So the back of the bolt is exposed. When that trigger is released, that's going to fly forward hard enough, transfer the shock into the primer, and off you trot. So the story is that the condition of this gun comes down to its life guarding a bank vault somewhere. Unfortunately, I don't know where, but it was obviously nice and dry because the rifle's in such fine condition. Now that is what I would call a high-grade rifle. If someone came to me and said they wanted to sell it, I'd realize that we're looking at quite a price on our hands to purchase. Now let's have a look at the 30-30 and look at the condition of that one. Bearing in mind that I would say that both rifles have equally good bores for their caliber and usability. So here we have it, the 30-30, 1894. Where's the finish gone? There is finish on the cartridge door, if you like. There is a tiny degree of bluing left on the lever. Once again, you've got a very nice patina that's built up here to allow the weapon to be oiled and looked after. And there is the crescent moon butt plate, which has also lost its finish. If we look at the top of the weapon, once again, there we have the later trademarks. The hammer's showing a bit of bluing. The bolt is completely clear. Winchester trademarks again. Very simple, easy to use sight. Maker's name and address. You notice that is gone. Now, this rifle has turned out to be a very usable weapon and still quite accurate. This is the other side of the 30-30. Once again, virtually not a speck of finish on the action, but the barrel has some. It has got some corrosion towards the tip, the end. That's all external. The bore's good. Being of nickel steel, you can see the tube is worn, but in the difficult to reach parts, there's still bluing. Bore end cap's worn. Dents and dings, but a nice patina over the surface of the timber. These are all collectible or good things to look for. Once again, there's that kind of oil-soaked finish where the gun's been stored upright with the butt on the floor, and the oil put into the action ends up seeping into the rest of the stock. It's not very good for it, but who was going to know that they were going to last so long? And there's the crescent moon butt plate. Just as a quick and interesting point, the Musket has a cleaning tube where all the cleaning bits and pieces are kept. So I would say that both of these weapons would deserve my attention if someone came to me and said, are you interested in buying? And you can see that they're both very different looking condition. But markings are sharp, and there is no refinishing involved in either of them. Even though this one is so distinctly black, you can tell it's the right period blacking, and that nobody's tried any silly business to tidy it up or make it look any better. So I hope you understand that. I hope that helps you when you're looking around gun shows or cruising the internet. Obviously, mechanical reliability. In this country, we look for proof marks. Winchester had a system of in-house proofing and testing. That's what those marks on the top of the 30-30 are. They are internal pass marks or acceptor marks that it's up to standard. But as collectors, I'd be looking very keenly at either of these weapons, and I would believe that there was a market out there for either of these. Consequently, they are a reasonably good investment. I hope you understood that and managed to follow it, and you're happy with what you've heard. If you've got any questions, please just send them through in the comments below. But if not, and you want to click like and subscribe, more stuff will follow at By Sword and Musket. If you want to visit the website and look at any other stuff that's been sold in the past, that's quite an interesting category to look at. Past sales as well as current stock, but past sales details a lot of information and pictures on many of these similar weapons that have been through my hands. So look that up on www.byswordandmusket.co.uk. Otherwise, this is Kirk at Sword and Musket signing off. Thanks for joining me.